Hey everybody, it's Pastor Steve, Faith Community Church, Indianapolis, Indiana. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. This is Servant Leadership session number 2. And I want to share with you a couple of verses here, and then we'll get into some principles to lead and to lead in a way that honors God and is a servant leader. In Mark chapter 10, beginning in verse 43, this is what Jesus told us. Jesus said, "But it shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant. And whoever would be first among you must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many." So when you think about leading, the way the world defines us as leading, we think about power, prestige, we think about position, climbing a ladder. But Jesus is telling us right there that even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom. Servant leadership involves laying down what you want for the betterment of the people you're leading. It involves serving, not leading from a place of position, not coming as a place of power, or hey, look at me, everyone underneath me, but it comes from a place of humility and asking people to follow based upon the fact that you are serving them, and that's what God's called you to do. To lead, in other words, is to serve. And so some things we talked about is a servant leader is a godly person. That means you've got the character who knows where he's going, and so that means you have vision and has people who follow him. So you want to make sure you have the character inside to lead people. You need to know where you're going. Ask God to show you his vision for where he wants you to go, and then you influence people to go with you into where God's calling you to go. It's not about programs. It's not about plans. It's not about having a busy calendar or having about a lot of activities. Servant leadership is about people, and it's about connecting people. Think about this, to the living water, Jesus. We don't have any answers, but Christ does. And so we're connecting people to the living water. And then here comes the hard part. Once we connect them to living water, we have to keep them there. So we disciple, we teach, we instruct. And so we do everything we can to keep people to the well of living water and keeping people connected to Christ. And so we need to understand the Bible speaks, when it comes to being a leader, about who a person is more than what a person does. A lot of people are looking for job descriptions and what am I supposed to do? If God's called me to lead, if God's called you to be a leader of a church or a ministry, or maybe you're a pastor, or maybe you're a discipleship leader, a small group leader, maybe God's called you and there are people underneath you and you're thinking, I need a to-do list of what to do. Well, the Bible speaks to more of who you are. If you will be who God's called you to be, the what to do will take care of itself. So you be who God's called you to be, and the what will take care of itself. And then remember this, if you can't lead yourself, you'll never be able to lead others. So it's important that you have what you need on the inside of you so that you can lead and be all God's called you to be. 3 things we talked about. These are important ones. We talked about that a servant leader is a holy person. They're deeply connected to God. They're living a holy life, a sanctified life. The other thing is that they live a habitual life, and that means they've got good habits. If you're going to be a servant leader and you're going to ask people to come along beside you, and you're going to take a group of people, again, influence them, find God's vision. If you're going to do that, then you've got to have good habits. You've got to have the habits that God's calling you to do. You can't ask other people to do the things that you're not doing yourself. So live a holy life. Live a holy life before God. Have good habits, and then live a life of humility. And humility is simply living with a confidence in God. Humility is not weakness. It's not coming underneath. It's a quiet strength in God himself. Humility involves a lot of trusting in God. We're trusting in God. We're keeping our eyes fixed on God. We're humble, knowing that it's not in our strength. It's not in our abilities, but it's in God's. Our confidence is in God, and in His abilities. So there's some things we have to do because we want to posture ourselves. We want to position ourselves for God to do His greatest work in us. And there's some things we need to examine when we think about our posturing of ourselves so that we can position ourselves, because we want God to use us. We have a desire for God to use us. We have a desire to influence and to guide people, to lead people. God's called you to a leadership position. God's called you to serve others. So there's three things we need to look at. The first one is your desires. What are your desires? What are your longings inside for your spiritual transformation? What is it that God wants you to look deep inside? What is it you long for every day? Because if you long for position, if you long for power, if you long for authority over people, these are the wrong desires. But if you want to have a deep connection with God, if you want to have spiritual transformation for yourself, and then you want to get people to that same spiritual transformation, that's a good thing and what God wants you to do. The other thing is, where do you need the most help? Because you would think as leaders, well, shouldn't we be helping others? And yes, but the question we have to ask ourselves as leaders is, God, where do I need the most help? Because not everyone is gifted in everything. So there are things in your life that you're going to have to be honest with yourself and say, God, help me. Maybe God's put you with people, and sometimes your speech isn't everything you need it to be. Sometimes there's things that you're needing extra help. You may have to study more. Maybe your memory, maybe it is connecting with people that's more difficult than others. So what is it in your life that you need God's help with? What is it that you find yourself needing and lacking in your life? Hey, we have a God that wants to help us. If God's called you to lead, God will certainly equip you. He would never call you to do something He won't equip you to do it. So make sure you seek God's help in these areas. And then find a plan. You've got to find a plan to be everything God's called you to be, to have the spiritual transformation inside yourself, and so that you can transform others. Develop a plan as a Christ follower. Remember, leadership will come as you yourself become more like Jesus every single day. So follow Christ. This is important. Follow Christ every day. Commit. I'm going to follow you, Jesus. I'm going to walk with you every day. The other thing you'll need to do is find a way to connect with people. Be a good listener. Let people tell their stories to you. And then you may have to get dirty, because there are going to be people in your life that are living difficult lives, and you're trying to get them to Jesus. And you may have to get down low with them in order to help them. Think about what Jesus is asking us to do, is to come alongside like the Good Samaritan and lift up someone and put them on your own donkey, pay for them, and get them wounded and bandaged up. Hey, it's going to be difficult. Discipling people, leading people, directing people, these are difficult things, but God will give you what you need. So commit to following Christ. Commit to doing all the things that God's called you to do by connecting with others. Follow Christ, connect with others, and get dirty. So in these ways, let me read to you this final quote here. Servant leaders are not motivated by control or power, nor by the need to fill a deficit of self-worth. A servant leader finds joy in empowering and equipping others so they can experience the fulfillment of their God-given contribution. God is calling you to be a servant leader. Get people to Jesus, but be everything He's called you to be. And as you follow Him, people will follow you, and you'll stay closer together. God bless you. Hey, thanks for being a part of Session 2 of Servant Leadership at Faith Community Church. Stay tuned. We've got more sessions coming. God bless you. We'll talk to you soon.